I like to use a method called MAM, multiply, add, multiply, when I factor trinomials. The first two have to multiply to get 5. The last two numbers have to multiply to get 12, but my loops have to add to get 23. Recall when you factor, you'll have your double parentheses here. And so I'm thinking what multiplies to get 5. Well, the only things that multiply to get 5x squared are 5x and x. And then I have to think what multiplies to get 12. Now, I'm going to try these numbers, and I can try 12 times 1, or 6 times 2, or 3 times 4. And this is basically a trial and error type of way. And there are a lot of methods that you can use to factor trinomials. They're basically very, very similar, and you're still going to have to come up with this combination of numbers to get the loops, pretty much no matter which method you use. So let's just try some things. I'm going to try, say, 6 and 2. Now, here's what I mean by the loops. You're going to take this inside loop and get 6x. You're going to take this outside loop, 5 times 2 is 10, and you get 10x. And then you ask yourself, is there any way to make a 6 and a 10 get 23? And there's not. So we don't want the 6 and the 2. Well, let's flip it and make it 2 and 6. All right, let's check the loops again. That's going to be 2 times x. 5 times 6 is 30. And then you ask yourself, is there any way to make a 2 and a 30 get to a 23? And there's not. So 2 and 6 don't work. So we've tried those, not going to use those. Now let's try the 3 and the 4. So I'm going to put 3 here and 4 here. And let's check our loops. If this doesn't work, then we'll just try the 4 and the 3. And if not, we'll go to the 12s and the 1s. So check this loop. 3 times x is 3x. 5 times 4 is 20x. And then I ask myself, is there any way to make a 3 and a 20 get to 23? And there is, if I add them. So they both need to be positives. Positive 3 and positive 20 gets me positive 3. So always do your signs down here first, then kick them back up to the problems. That 3 goes there, and this bottom sign goes here. And your answer is 5x plus 3 and x plus 4. Now, you can check these, and I'll just only check the first one just to show you that this right here is equivalent to my original trinomial. You check using the FOIL method or to distribute. Remember how we did the loops, the outers and the inners? That's what those are right there. So if I distribute, that means the 5x wants to distribute or multiply to everybody. 5x times x is 5x squared. 5x times 4 is 20x. Now the 3 says, my turn. Now I'm going to distribute. So 3 times x is 3x, and 3 times 4 is 12. If you collect your like terms, you get 5x squared plus 23x plus 12, which is what the original problem was. Again, we're not going to check everyone, but I wanted you to understand the relationship between the two and then know how to check if you want to. Okay, let's take a look at example number 2. All right, so let's think about multiply, add, multiply, and it's those loops that we're trying to get to be a negative 17. So once again, the only things that multiply to get 3 would be 3 and 1. So this is going to be kind of a nice one, just 3x and x. Multiplying to get 10, well, that could be 10 and 1 or 5 and 2. All right, let's try some possibilities. So let's say I want to try the 5 and the 2. Let's check our loops. That's going to be 5x 3 times 2 is 6x, and there's no way that a 5 and a 6 can get me to 17. So we need to erase. You want to have a good eraser with this. And so let's reverse that and try a 2 and a 5. All right, let's check our loops. 2 times x is 2x. 3 times 5 is 15x. And I can have a 2 and a 15 combination to get me to 17. But now look at your middleman. That is negative 17. So in order to get negative 17, I need 2 bad guys and 15 bad guys to get me 17 bad guys, all negative. So now kick those signs right back up. And you'll notice that negative times negative multiplies to get me that positive. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. So let's multiply, add, multiply. And it's those loops that have to add right there. So the only things that multiply to give me 2x squared are 2 and 1. 18, we could use 18 times 1, we could use 9 times 2, and we could use 6 times 3. Those are all of our possibilities. And so you're going to kind of play around with those possibilities, just trial and error. The more of these you do, the faster you'll get. Like your mind will almost see the numbers and you'll get better at your guessing. Let's say I want to try the 6 and the 3, checking my loops, that's a 6. 2 times 3 is 6. No way 6 and 6 is going to get to 5. So flip it and let's put the 3 here and the 6 here and see if we can get it this way. 2 times 6 is 12. 3, that won't do it. So I know it's not going to be the 6 and the 3, but let's try 9 and 2s and see if they work. And if not, we'll try the 2 and the 9. So when I try a 9 and a 2, let's check this loop. That's 9. 2 times 2 is 4. And sure enough, you can have a 9 and a 4, add or subtract to get me a 5. Now, this time they need to subtract because they're going to need to subtract to get 5. But look at your middleman. The bad guys or the negatives need to win this battle. So we need 9 negatives and 4 positives in order to get negative 5. Kick that sign back up to get negative and kick that sign up into the second. And again, if you want to check it with the FOIL or distribute, you certainly have that option. All right, let's take a look at example 4. All right, so again, we got to multiply to get 8, multiply to get 9, but our loops need to add to get 18. Now on this one, you're going to have a few more possibilities because to get 8, it could be 8 and 1, it could be 4 and 2. For 9, you have 9 and 1, or 3 times 3. Now typically, I'll use kind of the middle of the road numbers first, unless this number's really huge. If that number's really, really large, then I might want to try to, use the larger numbers. So I'm going to try the 4x and the 2x. And then I'm going to try over here. I think I'm going to try the 3 and the 3. Again, I'm going to go for the middle of the road numbers. All right, let's check our loops. 3 times 2 is 6x. 4 times 3 is 12x. And we got lucky on the first guess because 6 and 12 can get me to 18 if I make them both be positive. Work them together, add to get 18. So then kick your signs back up. 6, that's going to be plus there. The bottom one goes in the second, and it's positive. Also be mindful that you're checking that this 3 times 3 multiplies to get positive 9. Okay, let's try example 5. Now, look at example 5. In example 5, we've got this negative out front. Nobody really likes to factor with a negative for the first term. I mean, even a lot of us math teachers, we don't even like that either. So the first thing you need to do is let's factor out the negative. Let's just get that negative factored out. It's more difficult to factor when there's a negative out front. So I'm going to take a negative 1 out. So a negative divided by a negative is a positive 15x squared. A negative divided by a negative is a positive x. And a positive divided by a negative is a negative 28. Now we're ready to MAM. So just bring your negative down. He's part of your problem there. Just bring him down. Just kind of keep him with you. Now let's think about 15. We've got options, 15 and 1 or 5 and 3. For 28, we got a lot of options there too. 28 and 1, we got 2 times 14. We've got 4 times 7. So let's just kind of get a combination of numbers. I think I'm going to try the 5 and the 3 again. Remember, I kind of like to use the middle of the road numbers. That's not always going to be your answer, but I try that first, and if it doesn't work, obviously I'll go to the other set. All right, so now let's kind of try some combinations of numbers. Maybe I want the 2s and the 14s. If I put a 2 here and a 14 here, do you see that that's 6? And that would be 70, which is very large. No way that's going to get to be a 1. And if I flip them around and I put the 14 here and the 2 here, so let's see, I'll put the 14 here and the 2 here. 5 times 2 is 10, and 14 times 3 is 42. Again, that's not going to get me 1. So let's go back and try our 7s and our 4s and try it that way and see. So that's going to be my 5x and my 3x to get 15. I think I'm going to do 7 and 4. If it doesn't work, I'll try 4 and 7. Check loops. 7 times 3 is 21. 5 times 4 is 20, and I have a good feeling about that because a 21 and a 20 can give me a combination of a positive 1 if I let the good guys or the positives win this battle. So I need positive 21, take away 20. Kick those signs back up, positive in the first, negative in the second, and that's your correct answer. No matter which methods you use, most methods, even if you use the grouping method or the AC method, sometimes people call, you're still going to have to come up with this combination of numbers for the most part with those other methods as well. All right, let's take a look at number 6. On this one right here, I want to factor this, but before I factor it, I see something that can make my life easier, and we want to do that when we can. So I see that there is a greatest common factor. Each one of these has a 2. So let's get our greatest common factor out first. It just makes your numbers easier to work with. So I'm going to take out a 2. That's going to be 8 divided by 2 is 4a squared. 10 divided by 2 is negative 5a. And negative 12 divided by 2 is negative 6. So I want to do that first, and now I'll do my multiply, add, multiply. And you can see what happened is that now I only have to consider what 4 is, like 1 and 4 or 2 and 2, which is a lot less combinations or less than the 8 would have been. So bring your 2 down, and so for the 4, we could try 4 and 1 or 2 and 2. For the 6, 6 and 1 or 3 and 2. Now remember, I told you that I pretty much like to go middle of the road, so a 2a and a 2a. And then I'll use these combinations over here. I could use a 3 and a 2. I'm going to see it's not going to work. I could erase that and try the 2 and the 3. That's not going to work. I could try the 6 and the 1, and that's not going to work. Or I could try the 1 and the 6, and that's not going to work either. So therefore, instead of the 2 and the 2, this time I actually do need the 4 and the 1. So 4a and a. And then for the 6 and 1 or the 3 and the 2, let's try a 3 and a 2 and see if this works. 3a, 4 times 2 is 8a, And that will give me a combination of 5. It either has to add to get 5 or subtract to get 5. And these two numbers subtract to get 5. Look at your middleman. I need the negatives to win. So I need -8 and +3. Kick those problems or signs back up to the problem. That plus goes in the first and that negative goes in the second. Now you still want to kind of check, because remember, we got to multiply to get a -6. And 3 times -2 does multiply to get -6, while those added to get -5. Let's take a look at number 7. And if you'd like to, you could, if you feel comfortable, pause the video, try it on your own, and then come back and check with me. So we want to multiply, add, multiply. We want to get those loops to get -23. So for 6, you got 6 and 1 or 3 and 2s. Here, at least it's just 7 and 1 or 1 and 7. So that makes those numbers a little smaller. All right, so let's try, and this is what I hope you got if you did try it on your own. You want a 3 in and a 2 in. You want 1 and 7. And when I check my loops, 1 times 2 is 2, because you're multiplying those loops. 3 times 7 is 21. And 2 and 21 can give me a combination of 23. You want -23, so make them all be negatives. 2 negatives and 21 negatives give you a total of 23 negatives. Kick those signs back up, and then you just want to double check. Negative times negative does multiply to give you a positive. All right, last one. Again, if you'd like to, pause the video and try it on your own and see how you're doing. I'm looking here. I don't notice any greatest common factor to take out, but you do kind of want to be mindful if there is a number to take out. So for 20, you got a lot of options here. 20 times 1, 2 times 10, or 5 times 4. And with your 9, 9 and 1, or 3 times 3. So if you tried this on your own, I hope that you used the 5M and the 4M. All right, now I can do 9 and 1 or 3 and 3. Again, I told you a lot of times I would use the middle of the road numbers 3 and 3, but if I do that this time, that's 12 and that's 15. And I can't make a 12 and a 15 in any way, add or subtract, get me to 31. So obviously I don't want the 3 and the 3 this time. So it's either going to be 9 and 1 or 1 and 9. Let's try the 9 and the 1. Look at your loops. 9 times 4 is 36. 5 times 1 is 5. And then ask yourself, can I make a 36 and a 5 in any way get to a 31? And I can if I subtract them from one another. But look at your middleman. Who's got to win the battle? The negatives do. So make sure you have more negatives than positives. Kick your signs back up to the problem. That negative goes there. That positive goes there. If I want to do another check, which it's always good to check, negative times positive multiplies to get a negative. If you need more help and practice, be sure to watch my practice worksheet video on this topic. There you can watch me work and explain more examples. You can even pause the video, try the problem on your own, and then start it back to watch me work the answer and check yourself. Secondly, if this video was helpful, please like and subscribe to the channel. This allows me to continue to grow the channel so that I can put out more great videos to help you. See you next time.